Hi, I'm Misty SOLDwisch, and I've been successfully selling real estate since 1999. Find out my secrets on how you can do your best with Be Better DSM.
Hey, welcome everyone, and thanks so much for joining us on our Be Better DSM Real Estate Agent Mastermind. And Aaron and I are going to talk about just what's up in Central Iowa real estate right now and uh, challenges that we're seeing, also just ways that we can be better in our market in general, tools that have worked great, and all of that. So, first, Aaron, why don't you introduce yourself, tell a little bit about your background and how you got into real estate?
Hey, Misty. Well, I'm Aaron Moulton, as Misty said, and I've been in real estate now for almost 10 years. Been around the real estate industry for going on 18 years. So before I was in real estate, I was in the mortgage industry. So I've seen a lot of stuff happen here over the last 18 years. We've seen periods of time where the market crashed completely, and now we're into what everyone perceives as a slowdown. So we'll talk about that a little bit today, and just talk about some strategies that have worked great for our team here in 2018 and what we plan on doing and what we can help you with going forward for your next year, 2019. So excited to be here today. Thanks for having me, Misty.
Absolutely. And so my name's Misty SOLDwisch, and I've been in real estate since 1999. I started out as a solo agent for 7 years, and then in 2007, opened my own brokerage, and then about 6 years ago, started growing a team. So have definitely seen every aspect of real estate in a big variety of markets. And so I think that it's just useful to be able to take the lessons that we've learned and be able to apply it to your business. We're also really interested in hearing what kind of things that you've seen and questions that you have on how you can be better for 2019. So, Aaron, you're really great at following the news and the headlines. What are some things that are happening locally that you think are going to have an effect on the real estate market this next year?
Well, that's a great question. Locally, right now, we've seen two distinct markets in our marketplace. And you can go back to some of our previous videos that we've done on market stats. We try to do those every quarter. But the market's really become two distinct markets with listings right now, at least around the Des Moines area. Almost 40% of all of our inventory is new construction homes. And so, but new construction homes are only accounting for about 15 to 18% of all the home sales. And so the inventory for builders, that tells me builders have a really high confidence level that they're out there putting up inventory for us to sell, even though, so they're 40% of the market, even though they're only 20% of all the sales right now. And so we'll dig deeper into that here in a little bit, but that's a big thing right now. And then going along with new construction, one of the big things right now, we've seen one of our suburbs just have explosive growth over the last 2 or 3 years. It's Adel. And Adel has had a 7-year tax abatement, and that expires here on December 31st. So builders in Adel right now are literally in a mad rush. They're trying to get their homes with an occupancy permit before December 31st. And if they can, which is a huge savings. These homeowners are going to experience say it's a $300,000 house. You're going to be at $40,000 approximately in savings and property taxes over the next 7 years. That's a huge savings, a huge draw to that community and as well. Another big thing right now that I'm seeing, and it actually just came out yesterday. And so one of our largest builders here in the marketplace is Classic Builders. And for full disclosure, to the backstory here, my younger brothers own Classic Builders. And so they've been building houses here in the metro area for the last 10 years. And just yesterday, the press release went out about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and Classic Builders sold their home building company to the largest home building company in the United States, which is D.R. Horton Homes. And D.R. Horton's based in 26 different states. They build nearly 50,000 homes a year. And they're going to bring their processes here to the Des Moines market. And so that's going to present some new challenges as well for us as real estate agents. Just having a national home builder and their processes and their systems here in our marketplace, it's really going to shake things up. And, I'm pretty excited to see what happens with that. But we'll, if you guys have any questions about what that would do for our market, feel free to send us a comment here on our Facebook page. I'm following this as we go today, and I'll try to answer those questions.
Well, and Erin, I think that that's a really good thing to talk about, though, because since agents in our market really haven't seen that sort of model before, and there's a lot of pros and cons, right? And like you said, the full disclosure with the owners being your brothers, you've been like a super proud big brother about this all, just because it's such an amazing accomplishment in your family. But so what are the things that are going to be different? I mean, I think that there's some amazing positives of having someone with that kind of buying power in our market to build inventory for our clients. And what are some of those great positives that we'll see?
Some of the big positives the national home builders have, a big builder around here might build 200, 300, 400 homes a year. And that gets them a certain amount of buying power, and they go off to their contractors and negotiate pricing. Whereas a national home builder, when they come on the scene, they have access to national accounts. And so if they go and buy windows, they're buying windows, for 50,000 homes instead of 400 homes. And so that drives the prices down theoretically. And then also having a national home builder on the market, in our market right now, and to reverse back a little bit, just so you know why they wanted to come to the Des Moines market. The Des Moines market was considered the second biggest market in the United States that did not have the presence of a national home builder.
Kansas City being the first, right?
That's right. And Kansas City is probably not too far behind either. And so these big national home builders, they see our market here in the Midwest as being very stable. And so it's a very attractive market to them. Even though it's not a huge market, they see it being very stable in a market they want to enter into. And so, but the other side of it, the flip side of it from a realtor's perspective, is that now I don't have all the details yet. But the model that the national home builders use is that they typically will have sales centers typically set up in a model home in the neighborhood. And the national builders typically have an agent that represents them in the house, but that agent doesn't even have to be a licensed agent. They could hire just a salesperson that's considered a builder representative. And so, but they'll still work with us as realtors. They'll still pay us as realtors to sell these homes. And so there's opportunities out there. There's gonna be a lot more opportunity for a lot more inventory for us to sell, new floor plans and things like that. But the process of dealing with a listing agent or a listing brokerage from a traditional standpoint is going to probably change because that's the way they do it all across the country.
Yeah, and if anyone's lived in any other large market, that's really typical, and they have their in-house sales team. And so it just will be a different way to do business. And then, I think that it's just one of those things that it's providing consumers more choices and opportunities. And, we can walk through what the pros and cons are for what our clients' needs are. And it's really exciting.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, what do you think, Misty, right now in our market, what do you think is something that we're seeing, that's worked well, maybe in 2018, that we're going to have to see as, the market's definitely changing. The market's, the perception is the market's slowing down right now. So what do you think, are strategies that worked pretty well, maybe even for you and your team in 2018? Could you touch on a few of those?
Well, I think that when we're in a super strong market, when inventory is selling very rapidly and that sort of thing, it can get really easy to get in the habit of pricing homes and just seeing if it sticks, that sort of thing, because our pricing is always upwardly moving in different markets that are really strong. I think the challenges that we're starting to see, and my team does a lot of proactive, like calling on expired listings and that sort of thing. And an expired listing, one that had been on the market and the contract ended and they pulled off the market. But I think it's a lot of just really being strong at articulating what's happening in our market. And that's by not just guessing, but by doing some research and talking about absorption rates in the market segment they're in, and things that make us sound really smart and like we really have done a lot of research, and things that we should be doing when we're professionals that our clients are, paying thousands and thousands of dollars to work with. But I think that that's the shift that we're going to see as our market kind of, I wouldn't say it's like a downward trend, but maybe stabilizing a little bit from not being such a seller's market and to being more of a market in equilibrium. And then in some segments, like, as you go into higher price points, more of a buyer's market.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would see, as you said, I always look into stats. And so the numbers never lie in real estate. And so right now, as of December 1st, our marketplace, we have it's a decrease of 4.8% of pending contracts than what we had at the same time last year. And so, that's a little bit lower, but it's not a crash by any means. It's just, we've actually had some crazy things happen here in our marketplace. We had a super wet fall. We had floods in June. And so, and we've also had rising interest rates. Okay, when interest rates have gone up nearly 80 basis points, 0.875%, that's driven up people's payments nearly 18% than what they were experiencing just a year ago. And so for our market to only be down 4.8% while people's payments have increased 17 to 18%, I think that still shows some real strength in our market right now.
Absolutely. And when people get freaked out about where interest rates are, I think about how when I started, the interest rates were like 8.5%. So, and people bought lots of homes. So, okay. So, where I think one thing that would be great to talk about, well, first of all, we've had a couple questions on our live, and thank you so much, Greg, for being so interactive with us. Appreciate it. He was asking all sort of wide variety of questions. Thank you, Greg. If someone wants to get into real estate. Okay, so I'm going to jump into that right now because I do think that it's good to talk about, like, do you have any sort of information about how many people have entered our market this year, Aaron? That would be a great thing to get.
Right now in our MLS, there's about 2,500 agents. That number fluctuates up and down from month to month. But about a year ago, we were sitting around 2,200 to 2,300 agents. We've had about 200 new agents enter the market. And so what ends up happening is that all of us agents, all 2,500 of us agents, we're all competing for the same business essentially. And right now, if I take off what our market's down a little bit, there's 3,800 homes for sale right now, active homes. So I'm not an expert at math, but if there's 3,800 active homes for sale and there's 2,500 agents out there, and we have about 14 to 15,000 sales a year. You just divide the two numbers together, and there's not a lot of active listings out there, listings just to spread around amongst all the agents. And so that's why it's going to be good to talk today about some of our strategies of what we're doing to, maybe make a point of difference between us and the other 2,499 agents that are out there.
Right.
And so, but that's what I'm seeing right now. There's 3,800 active homes and and there's 2,500 agents out there.
Yeah. So a couple things, like I always kind of laugh a little bit when, we do a lot of talking to people that are thinking about getting into the industry. So like we do a monthly meet and greet and kind of explain how to get your license and how it works at our company and things like that. But the big fallacy in people dreaming of being in real estate is what they want to have total flexibility. And really, when you're in that kind of competitive market, it's not flexibility, it's needing to get things done when they need to get done because people have a lot of options. So anyway, I mean, I think that that's a really important thing to think about. But, we have a lot of room for improvement in our marketplace, Des Moines, in just how we go about just the different steps of the professional process when we're representing our clients to another agent. And what are your thoughts on that, Erin, as far as just what we see overall with newer agents or more experienced agents in how they represent clients and present offers and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's what value, can you bring as an agent to the transaction? Yeah, maybe you have a client and they want to write an offer on a property. And so, but maybe this is the first offer you've ever written. And so, just trying to navigate the waters of how do I get that from presenting an offer? I've showed the house, I present the offer, I get my offer accepted and get it to the closing table, and I get my paycheck, and then I got to start that process all over again. And everything in between getting my offer accepted and getting to the closing table, I spent a lot of time with. And so, there's a lot of things that we use as a team that help us, organize our day, keep track of what we're doing. And so what it allows me to do is in real estate, I want to focus on what I call money-making activities. And so I want to be doing money-making activities. To me, a money-making activity might not be spending 2 hours driving there and back to put a sign up, during the workday. And so if I know that the prime time for me to prospect for more business, because I just sold a house, I don't have anyone else to work with right now, I need to prospect for more business, I probably don't want to spend 2 hours of my prime appointment setting time going out and setting up a sign. Maybe I might even have to get up a little bit earlier in the day. You just never know what the strategy is, but we've got to, prioritize and organize our day in a way where we can keep this business going for us. And that's a big hurdle that I see new agents are always, they're just chasing after the next task that they got to do to get a deal done. And in the meantime, they lose sight of, I've got to keep bringing in more new business.
Well, and I think that can even be when someone's been in the business for a while, that you get caught up in the busy instead of in what the things are that are going to move your business forward and create some stability and things. But, we work with a lot of listings. Like usually on my team, we're working with around 80 active and 30 to 40 pending listings at any given time. And so we see a lot of offers come in from agents throughout our marketplace. And it is really interesting to see the different approaches and methodology or lack of methodology, lack of salesmanship that can happen. And so I think we should kind of talk about what do we see that are the really great things that make it effective versus the things that are not serving the client to the highest level, are not going to help you be the best agent you can be.
Right. So, what we're seeing right now, we've only got a 3.3 month supply of homes on the market right now. So that's still a seller's market. And if we're out there and we represent a buyer, what's happening a lot is if a hot new listing comes on the market, it's priced at $175,000. It's been on the market a day and there's been 10 showings on it and agents are calling for highest and best offer. And chances are we might lose out on our offer. And a lot of agents want to go back into their shell and decide we lost out on that house. I'll let you know when a new house comes on the market. We have a strategy where we like to encourage our agents and our team members to talk our buyers through maybe being a backup offer, which isn't very popular here in our market. And but it's something that not only us as a buyer's agent, or, someone that represents a buyer, it gives a great opportunity for a buyer to, have an offer out on a house, because, a lot of deals right now are falling apart, maybe at the home inspection stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so if a seller has another offer as a backup offer accepted on the property, it's just a great opportunity for them to either leverage that backup offer in their inspection items, or to, it just gives them choices of what they're going to do in the process.
Well, and like, to back up a little bit on the backup offer thing, I mean, I think even before you get there, we see some offers come through in a very similar way to how my team's home buying specialists like to present offers. We have a template that we use that kind of outlines everything really clearly. The price, the earnest money, the seller concessions, the included items, the closing date. We have a section where we talk about like what it is that connected the buyer to the home, why they're interested in it. And then it closes with like, we're here to make this transaction as smooth as possible. We have a transaction team that works with us as well. So we're going to make sure we make this as easy as possible for you to work with us. Other agents do something very similar in our market, and I think that's always so helpful. My favorite, I've always found it really effective, like when agents will send a video or photos or letters, that sort of thing, when you have a seller who's really emotionally attached to their home. But I really find it amazing. I mean, I would say that 85% of our offers, and I was thinking it's more than 80, but less than 90, they are sent to us shared in .loop with zero explanation, zero information about their client, and really about half the time we even have to ask if they have a pre-approval letter. So there's a huge amount of improvement that can be done in our market in upping our game in presenting offers. What was the new law that was passed last year too about like the opportunity to present in front of sellers, Aaron?
Yeah, that basically if a buyer's agent wants to present an offer to a seller, they can't be denied that opportunity if it's possible to be done. And I
think it's in front of the seller, but to the listing agent, maybe.
The listing agent, yes. Yeah. And so I can't sit there at their kitchen table and have a conversation with them, but I could sit there at their kitchen table and talk to their listing agent, and they're probably going to hear everything that I said. And another thing that I see with that, when people are, real estate is such an emotional transaction. We could be dealing with a seller that has beautiful landscaping at their property. And we like to take the route of, we're going to explain to that seller that our buyer loves the landscaping and they can't wait to add to the landscaping or keep, maintain it. And just that little bit of information might be enough to put us over the top, in a multiple offer situation. Just knowing the seller knows, hey, this person's going to also take pride in the same home that I, took pride in for the last 20 years. And so I just think that's great. And it is, it is interesting. We see a lot of offers come through, and it'll come through at 11 o'clock at night, and it's just a .loop link. And we just don't know anything about the buyer's situation. We don't know if they're flexible on anything. It's just an email that comes through versus someone that's,
Yeah. And, you just have to think about, like, you're the person who your client has hired, who stands to make thousands of dollars if this buyer successfully purchases this home. And your job is to represent them in the best way possible. And, it's just so important to go above and beyond and not do like the minimum necessary, because why are you working with them if you're really not interested in doing the best? And I understand that sometimes we just don't know, but I think it's important for us to talk about Oprah always quotes Maya Angelou on, when I knew better, I did better. And that's what we need to be doing.
So I did have a question come in. I'll ask you here, Misty.
Yeah.
What would you say are the top 3 lead generation sources that you've seen here in 2018? We get leads from all different places. What would probably be the top 3 for you and your team?
So, I mean, my team's it's very different for me now than it was like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You know, as we've grown, the way that we go through that process has grown a lot. So our top is past client referrals. And, you know, I think a lot of that is through having a great experience for clients that we've worked with. And, you know, I've got thousands of clients with my, you know, long time in the business. But then it's also like keeping in touch with them and making sure that they remember we're here and all of that. So past client referrals, number 1. You know, I don't think it's any secret to anyone that's in the real estate industry that I do a lot of like mass media advertising. I do radio and television, and that's a huge investment. And really, that was really scary to jump into 5 years ago, but it has been like incredibly effective. So even if they didn't contact us specifically, like off of that source, you know, people always talk about that they've heard the endorsement by Van and Bonnie on WHO, or they've seen the TV commercial with Barbara Corcoran. So that's been super effective. We do purchase leads from sources like Realtor.com and Zillow as well. And oh my gosh, that game is changing completely. But it's something that if you don't have the resources set up to be effective at it, it's a total waste of your money. And it took like a long time for us to get figured out the best way to go about that. And but you know, we do you know, about 25% of our buyer side is from those paid lead generation sources. So like easily 80, 90 deals a year from that.
So with past clients, Misty, let's go back to that one and touch on that one. When you want to stay in front of your past clients, are you what kind of information are you offering them up throughout the year? Do you have a goal of reaching out to them once or twice a year? I mean, are you offering them home improvement tips? What's a good strategy to stay in front of those past clients?
Well, I mean, I think that it depends on the scale of your business and just where you're at right now. You know, if you've been in the business for you know, 3 to 5 years, you know, you're going to have a nice number of people to reach out to, but it's, you know, definitely attainable. And I think it's all about having, I think it's important that we reach out to them, you know, at least once a month in some way. You cut out a little bit, Aaron, but I think you came back on again. I think we need to unmute you.
I'm good. I'm back. Sorry, I lost my video
you're
there for a
back.
second.
Yay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So, you know, as my business started scaling, I started doing more video and doing like a video blog that goes out to clients. So, I mean, I think there's like 12,000 people that get that every month or twice a month, something like that. And, you know, that's as I've grown a team too, because I'm not necessarily the person in front of my clients that are working with our team. And so just having that connection and explaining, you know, the systems and philosophy that I've put in place, having them understand that is helpful. We do an annual calendar, like a mailing of a calendar.
You know, when I get on a Zillow listing, I see 5 or 6 different real estate agents listed on a listing at the top of the page. And so if I'm making a phone call directly from their app or their website, how many agents are getting those phone calls? I mean, you know, do you know anything about whether the agents are actually answering the phones? What can you talk to me about Zillow right now? Because that seems to be, it's a love-hate relationship with realtors.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think I got tagged on a post on the Central Iowa Realtor Knowledge page. It was a post of people ranting against Zillow. And then someone posted something about me because I've said that I use Zillow. And, I think it's one of those things that, so the information I have about what's changed is secondhand because my client services department, Allison, Emily, and Abby, they all sat through a meeting with them earlier this year or earlier this week. So Zillow had first started launching in other markets, and it just came to the Des Moines market this week, PA4, which basically it's their concierge service, and it's a different way of routing their leads, that there is actually someone from Zillow that first reaches out to the consumer. They are saying, and honestly, I completely believe this, that nationwide, when a consumer calls through Zillow, when they click to call and talk to someone, it gets picked up like less than 20% of the time. Totally believe that. Just based on, how we, when you're out and about and showing houses, obviously if you get a Zillow lead, you're not able to answer it. And then we just tend to have like just a reflex that you get a call and you let it go to voicemail, like text me instead. Hard to do when your business is like, generating leads and trying to connect buyers on your properties and that sort of thing. So first of all, like, the consumer has many different agents they can select, or they can choose to deselect anyone. But when they call now, instead of going directly to an agent, it's going to go to the concierge service.
So is the concierge service, is that an automated system or is that a real person on Zillow's end? How does that work?
So from what I understand, it's a real person on their end. And so I did a meeting with our Realtor.com rep a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about how, on average, like when a Realtor.com inquiry is sent through, agents will answer it within 2 hours. And the consumer expectation is 2 minutes or less. So, just like with that, I mean, what Zillow's trying to do is get that person talked to immediately, and then they call, and you have a 30-second opportunity to pick up the phone. And if you don't, then they move on to someone else, and they do like a live connect. So it took a little bit for us. Like, we use a lot of routing systems on our team to be able to source where business is coming from. Like, we have a lot of custom numbers and things like that. And so we had to like take that out so that the call would go through to us. Otherwise, Zillow was thinking that we were sending them a voicemail. So that was really interesting. We've had to completely rework our systems, but it's going to be tricky. And, obviously there's a lot of talk about like what their end goal is and a lot of fear. And I guess my standpoint right now is we're continually working every day to take what the investment is and make it most effective for connecting clients and selling homes. And, that might change in the future, but right now that's going to continue to be a large pillar of our business.
I mean, off the top of your head, you don't have to look it up. I mean, how many appointments do you think we've set off of Zillow this year?
A couple hundred. I mean, a lot.
Is there actual face-to-face in the office, they're meeting showings on properties?
Yeah.
So there's opportunity definitely out there with Zillow, but you have to stay up on all their changes. I mean, it just is a revolving door. And, being a new agent in the market, if you're a brand new agent, I mean, I don't know how you could possibly navigate everything Zillow's doing and try to start a new real estate business. And so that's why.
No, I think it'd be dangerous as a brand new agent. I mean, to make that kind of investment, just because I think there's less costly ways to do that are going to get you where you need to go for the short term. And yeah, I just think that's a big risk. That is the hardest thing about getting into real estate, or just, the first few years of real estate too, is the up and down of the consistency of income. And so it can be really scary to have like a guaranteed expense that you're not prepared to pay for every month.
Right. I got another just kind of crazy topic is we've had some really crazy cold weather here with no snow on the ground. And so
Yeah.
here in Iowa, we've already got frost in the ground, probably about 6 to 12 inches of frost. And so we get a new listing and we've got to get that sign in the ground. And it might seem like something absolutely crazy to talk about here on this, but I've seen agents break their feet walking around in a cast because they've tried to jump on a sign into frozen ground. And so, what are some things that you can do to get a sign in a frozen piece of ground right now?
Yeah. So, it is funny because my business has changed so much in the last 5 years, but like 5 to 10 years ago, that time frame was very heavily involved with foreclosure listings because that's what was happening in the market. And so I was having to traipse all over the Iowa countryside, putting up, taking down signs in all kinds of weather. And so I did become a sign expert, a sign installation expert, and have trained many people on my techniques. So first of all, so we use a couple different types of signs, and the single stake sign, like Screen Images is a local provider that does like the single stake sign that has like a T-bar in the middle. There's online providers that do that as well, but they're the ones that have like the sturdiest T-bar that I've known of. Those are the easiest in the really bad weather because you can really jump on it. I have a really hard time with the framed signs that have the two sides when it gets really bad. But what we have done is we carry around a power drill with us. And so even when it's dry, like the hot weather, you need it just as badly as you do when the ground is frozen. And drilling into the earth is really essential. Have you done it any different ways?
I've actually tried antifreeze, all natural. Yeah. And so I've tried that before. It doesn't work quite as well.
That'd be nice, like to have like pink around the sign then.
Yes. And so, but the drill, I started using the drill actually this summer when things got really dry. And that works great. And then if it ever starts to snow, that also becomes an issue too. Because we'll get the signs in the ground, but then also
or in a snowbank.
It's in a snowbank, or it gets really hard to get those signs out of the ground as well.
Yeah.
And so just kind of crazy stuff that, just came to the top of my mind here that since we're dealing with some cold weather right now.
Some of my favorite, most embarrassing moments in real estate is like trying to remove a sign while your clients are in the house watching you out of their living room window. It requires a lot of humility and graciousness.
So another thing that we deal with right now a lot is we deal with a lot of people this time of year that say, I want to wait until springtime.
Yeah.
And so, what can we tell, whether they're a buyer or a seller, that might convince them maybe not to wait until springtime? Maybe now is the opportunity. What are some of those things that we can talk about?
It's interesting because we've seen clients in our Des Moines market, or consumers that aren't clients yet, that have contacted us that have said other agents have told them there'll be more stuff available in February, wait till then. And I'm like, what? I think that's crazy. I think that, a lot of people have in their mind that the general public, that like spring's the hot time for real estate. And, a lot of stuff happens in spring, and spring is really pretty, and the days are starting to get longer and all of that. But I think that it's really important that we as agents here in Des Moines should not be telling people that something's going to happen in February that isn't possible now. I mean, that's crazy to me. And so, I mean, first of all, it's saying to, and Greg is just chiming in here. I love all your interaction, Greg. It's awesome. Talking about how it is busy. It is. And, you know, it is, but it's being like aware of what's happening and, you know, articulating to buyers. It's like, you know what? Sellers that are on the market right now, like particularly between this Thanksgiving to Christmas timeline, like they're not just experimental sellers that are just like, you know, testing the waters. I mean,
They want to show, they like showing off their Christmas decorations.
Yeah, they just want people to see their Christmas village. No, I mean, they're here to sell. And so maybe it's a lower volume of homes that are on the market, but you know, there's some advantages to not being like in a competing situation in every offer that you make and all of that, which that's a huge bonus. I think there's also a lot of opportunity of, you know, if you're representing a buyer to look at what maybe didn't sell before and reaching out to that seller and saying, hey, you know what? I have someone that I think would be a great fit for your home. Can I show it to them? I know you're not on the market right now, but I mean, just finding different ways to find inventory for them.
Yeah, I mean, and what do you see typically happen with home prices if we're still, you know, I've read some statistics here and some predictions that by the end of 2019, we could be looking at a 5.5% mortgage rate. So as rates continue to increase, what's that do to home values typically in the marketplace when rates are going up? You know, that's something I like to take into account, because if I see, you know, people's payments are going up, that doesn't necessarily correlate that home values continue to go up. And so now might be the best time to get the most amount of money out of your house, because someone can still take advantage of a still historically low interest rate of 4.875. And so your house might not look as attractive come June when there's, you know, 1,000 more houses on the market and interest rates have increased another 0.5%. And so that's just another way to look at whether or not now is a good time or should we wait until the springtime.
Well, and then another great thing that I heard when I was at a conference a couple of years ago, it'd be nice to know the exact statistics to be able to throw out there, but it is something I've said to people that are interested in selling but thinking of waiting until after the holidays. Google Analytics says that the highest volume of home searches is in this holiday season, like Thanksgiving to New Year's. And, you know, don't you want to be seen when people are looking the most? Have your home be an option rather than not being an option for them. And you know, it makes sense to me. Like people get together. There's so many different get-togethers. People love to talk about real estate, and then they hop on their app and start like, oh, I saw this house, or, you know, because they're dreaming of what they want for the year ahead. And so the statistic of that makes total sense to me, but it's having people understand that too. It's like, oh, I need to be there where buyers are looking.
Right. So I'm going to put one more thing on here on the board. Maybe the last topic we'll talk about here today is what are the best apps you're seeing right now in real estate, and things that you probably just can't live without going into 2019.
So I will say that 2018 has been the year of Trello for me and my whole team. Some of them more than others. But Trello is a project management app and website. And we had heard about it being used in real estate like in 2017 and used for transaction management and for organizing tasks with listings and just projects that you have and that sort of thing. And it truly took, it took me a little bit to grasp it. It took our team like a good, we talked about it for about 6 months on our operations side before we started implementing it, because it took a little bit to figure out like how it worked and the tips and tricks and stuff. But once we did, like it is awesome. And I see a lot of posts on the Central Iowa Realtor Knowledge page about asking about like CRMs and just different types of tools like that to purchase for organizing your business. And the awesome thing is that Trello is free. And I mean, there are pro versions. We haven't had a need to use it. And we've got like 20 people using it and interacting on boards and stuff. But Trello is free and it's amazing. So if you have any questions about like how we use it, I'm happy to share that. I actually have a video that's coming out, I think next week too, that kind of talks about Trello a little more, but it has been like a game changer for us. We used Top Producer for a long time, and it eliminated the need for us to have that monthly cost.
So let's talk about, maybe we've got time for one more app besides Trello. I know that's been, even for me, it took me a while to start using it. And now that I'm using it,
yeah,
it's great. I mean, it has the ability to checklists.
Mm-hmm.
You can upload files. It's all shared real time. So if you're in a one-on-one meeting with someone, you can add notes and ideas on there. And as I type it in, it's literally appearing on someone else's screen, because you can share cards with multiple people. So that's been a great app, for our team to use. What else have you seen has been, probably something you can't live without for an app on your phone or a website that you've got to have utilized better here for 2019?
Well, gosh, I would say that it's not so much like the new, but it's using what we already have and using it more to its full ability. So, I'm amazed, like it's the tools that we use here on my team, like how people will figure out like, oh, I didn't realize that Showing Time does this, and sharing that with each other. I mean, it can be so easy to just get in the habit of doing it one way, and when there's a lot of different features that you're not even taking advantage of. I think Showing Time is like the best thing our board has ever done. It's amazing.
So with Showing Time, we're seeing right now, you have a range of agents that use Showing Time to different degrees of usefulness. We'll put it that way. And so, but Showing Time has the ability for us to add our sellers' information in there. Doesn't necessarily make it public, puts their phone number out there for all to see, but basically the sellers, for example, can set up their contact info, their email, download the app. And so when a showing request comes through, instead of me trying to say, well, okay, I've got to maybe do a screenshot on my phone, I'm going to share that with them, or I'm going to call them and they're sitting at work and there needs to be a showing happening in the next 2 hours. Why not, as soon as I get the notification, let them get the notification as well. And then we're working together to let, to try and get that showing happening.
Yeah, and we had started using Showing Time, I think a few months before the board announced that they were using it. And so it was just, we knew that they were thinking about it and we needed to get a different system, just because I had someone that like their full-time job was setting up showings with sellers. And but I know that there are a lot of agents in the market still that don't share it directly. Like they still will, they'll get the notification on Showing Time, but they won't share it with the seller. Don't do that. Make your life easier. And, we like to ask, we explain to sellers how it works. And then if it's someone that is just completely technologically challenged, we say, you know what, if you have any trouble, we'll do it a different way, not a problem. And I have found even like the 85-year-old grandmas, like they love getting the notifications via text, and because then they have the reminder on their phone. I mean, it just makes it so much easier. So yeah, using that to the full ability is good. I think that our agents could be like using the messaging feature through it more when communicating about showings, instead of like sending outside messages, because then it's linked in the program. So, okay, we have a couple other comments and questions that people have had that I want to touch on real quick before we finish up. Katie Van Rijswijk had asked, what's the best way to find contact information for sellers with expired listings? And I had mentioned that we do call expired listings. I think you've done it in the past, Erin, but you did it more the old-fashioned way, right?
Yeah, there's an old-fashioned way of actually going out and knocking on their door.
Yes.
Seems a little crazy, but it works. I mean, if you're not afraid of putting yourself out there, being vulnerable and saying, hey, because these are people that have tried to sell their home. I mean, they've had showings hopefully at their home. And so me as a real estate agent, if I go and knock on their door with a smile on my face and say, hey, you know what? I noticed your house became an expired listing today. Are you familiar with the techniques I use to market and sell homes? That's usually a question they will not usually answer that question with a yes. You say, are you familiar with the techniques I use to market and sell homes?
That's a good way to put it.
They're usually going to say no. And that leads you right into the ability to be able to give you your value of what you can do to help them sell their home.
Yeah.
And so that's an old-fashioned way. Maybe a new way, I've seen it happen a lot, is I don't know what else to call it besides like maybe a social media stalking.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily, we can't find their phone number or their email address on an expired MLS listing, but we typically through their public records or the MLS will have their name. And so we've had great success with going out and trying to find these people on Facebook first. And then from Facebook, we can find connections of people. It's just amazing, how what I call it, we're in a big small town here.
Right.
And so, maybe we see, oh, they've got a mutual friend that I know that works down the street, and I could reach out to that person and then get connected to that expired listing. But there's some other techniques that you can use as well that maybe you could talk about what you're using on your team, Misty.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different, there's like 3 or 4 different services that you can purchase. We have used RedX, which you have to load MLS information into it, and then they pull contact information on that. And then we use Vulcan very actively, Vulcan 7. It has a dialer that's built in, and you don't have to like load stuff in. It ties into our MLS feed, and that is all like a numbers game, and being consistent and persistent.
So with something like Vulcan, is it that's a service you've got to pay for, Misty, in order to get those phone numbers? And how does it go out and find those phone numbers of those people?
That's always the interesting thing, because sometimes it will connect you with like the mother's phone number. Like, it can be a 50-year-old man and you get his mother's phone number because somehow on some form he filled out online. And, I think when people are like, how'd you get my information? We just use a service that helps connect us to people that might have our needs.
So it's basically, they specialize in basically searching the web for anywhere that person's phone number maybe has appeared. I once found an expired listings phone number on a PDF document on a Google search. She was on a board, and her personal contact information was on that PDF as being, the chairman of the board for like the school PTA or something like that.
Wow.
And it went out and found her, cell phone number and her email address because it got posted onto a website through a PDF.
Yes, we have so much privacy now, don't we?
But there's ways to find these people.
There is. And, a complaint that I hear of people that have used it and quit using it is, oh, there's so many bad numbers. It's just there's not any point. There's a lot of bad numbers, but, that you mark those as being bad numbers and you move on. It's a numbers game. Okay, so last thing. Allison Langrick had posted, what about postcards in areas that you have a listing? That's something I've used on and off during the years. And whenever I start talking about it, I always think, oh man, I need to start doing that again. because that can be really effective, particularly if it's an area that you like have consistently had business. It's just a great way to get name recognition and have people connect your name, your brand to being successful with real estate in that area, doing both just listed and just sold cards. The important thing is like to have a call to action in it as well, like something of value. Um, and it do not make the investment if you're going to do like the tiny little cards that are the cheapest price, because those people just throw them away. The jumbo postcards that are extra thick and heavy stock and glossy, like 100%, there's a huge difference in how people will take a note of those. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a potential tool, but over the years, I've heard so many times from agents, like they pin all their hopes on doing one mailing. You are lucky to get one response per couple thousand of pieces that are sent out. So do not ever that is another thing that it's like you have to plan on doing it multiple times for it to be effective. All right.
Yeah, well, I really
time flies when we're having fun here, Aaron.
I know. I really appreciate all the information today. I mean, I learn every time, and we talk almost on a daily basis, Misty. And so I would just appreciate the information, the knowledge that you're always willing to share, because our whole goal is not necessarily to be all competitors. We feel like if we can all work better together, that our industry and us as agents, we can just raise that level of expectation and service levels that the consumers are seeing out there right now in the marketplace. And so I just always appreciate you being willing to share some of these tips with us. And hopefully, agents can use this information and make next year even better than what this year was.
Absolutely. And, I think that what you touched on is exactly right. We are in a competitive environment as real estate agents, but it is collaborative competition, because even though we might both be interviewed by a seller to sell their home and they're making a choice, we have to work together on sharing inventory information, on negotiating offers, and it just makes our industry just so much more enjoyable and so much more productive when we're working together. And I think it can be easy when someone is newer in the business and, I have a very different setup than a lot of agents do, having being a team leader with a pretty large team, and it can be easy to make assumptions of like who we are and all of that. I mean, our goal is to make everyone we work with just be thrilled to death that we're making their job as easy as possible. And nothing that I do is like some super special secret that no one has access to. It's just the same thing that you're doing watching something like this. It's watching what's worked for other people and then putting it into action. And that's the key thing. I mean, it can be really easy to get stuck doing things the same way, but it's just important to put it into action. And so this is such an important time to be thinking about like, what are the things that you can do to make your 2019 year the strongest year ever? So thanks so much, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, Misty. And wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and good luck in 2019.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you.